Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 50s Chicks podcast. I'm Annalie,
And I am Patricia.
and today we have a special episode for all our viewers, especially for those navigating online dating in their 50s.
We are going to be reviewing a Reddit story, and we will have as our first guest the author of the Reddit story.
Yes!
Yeah.
This is a guy in his 50s who is currently separated and he's stepping into the world of online dating. This is going to be a great one, so stay tuned and let's get into it.
That's it.
This Reddit is called First Relationship and Breakup After Marital Separation. And he says, well, I, 59 male, am now officially back in the dating game. After casually going on dates with a few different women, I had my first post-separation romance. We only dated for 2 months, but we got really close and had a terrific connection. Ultimately, she, 55 female, couldn't handle her jealousy over my ongoing interactions with my ex. We have 2 kids together, and she ended things for that reason, inviting me to contact her once the divorce is finalized. I am very sad and disappointed, but my reassurances to her just were not enough. Despite being sad, however, I also feel glad that I was able to date again. After almost 33 years of being married, 2 marriages back to back, I was worried about my desirability and ability to date at this stage of my life. Anyway, thought I would share my experience with all of you. There are good people out there, and I was lucky enough to be with one, albeit briefly. I am sorry it didn't work out, but onward and upward. I feel confident that my person is out there somewhere. Good luck to everyone in your search.
Oh, okay.
That's right. Trying to give us hope.
Yeah. Well,
Giving everybody hope that there is somebody out there for everyone.
yes, and it's never too late, you know? Okay, so we are here and we have our guest. He's here waiting to go. We're going to call him Zach. Hi, Zach.
Hey, good evening. How you guys doing?
And we are excited to have you here, and we are very eager to get into this interview. And I guess before that, we're going to allow you to, tell us a little bit about yourself as much as you're comfortable.
Sure. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on your show. I love your show. I love what you guys are doing for the 50s dating community. It's an underserved community. So a little bit about me. I'm 59. I'll be 60 in a couple of months, which is horrifying to me. I feel like still I'm in my 30s. Although I certainly don't look that way. But I've been married twice. I was married once for 20 years. My second marriage, which is ending now, has ended. We're just waiting for the divorce date. Was 12 years. I was back on the market at the ripe old age of 58 and 59, and I did meet somebody, and I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Is a post on Reddit I made about meeting her and how wonderful it's been and how difficult it's been in light of my circumstances.
So here are some questions we were going to ask you. Can you tell us more about your decision to start dating after your separation?
Yes. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So I actually have been in the process of separating for a long time. It's been a good year and a half of, making the decision to get divorced and then doing a separation agreement, starting to figure out what the separation is going to look like in terms of living arrangements, going to therapy. My therapist, I think, bought a new boat based on all the therapy that he did with me, and just getting myself, my life and myself in a position where I would not be a distraction to people that I'm trying to date. And so it took a while for me to get to that point. Unfortunately, because of the rules in the state where I live, we can't get divorced for like another 9 months on top of what we've already gone through. And so, I decided I'm going to be 60 years old in December, and I didn't want to wait any longer to start dating. I'm well over the marriage, um, and I'm in a position now where I'm ready. And so that's where that post came from. That was really my first foray back into the wild after, I guess it's been since like the Obama administration. I mean, it's been a while since I've dated.
So, was it anything in particular that made you think, well, I'm ready now?
You know what? I can't say that there was anything in particular, any one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just a combination of grieving and, going through the process of coming to terms with the failure of my marriage and all that. And then, once I got past those things, it was really just a matter of, am I going to break down crying when I have coffee with this woman, for the first time? And once I got to the point where I was emotionally stable, if you will, I just, I started noodling around on dating apps, none of which existed the last time I was single, except for Match, which was a website back then. And I decided on Bumble and went for it, and here we are.
So, what was your goal? When you went back into the dating? What was your goal?
I think that's a fair question because I'm still not divorced. But my goal is still, notwithstanding the illogical approach that I may be taking, is still to find someone to be with. I've never been somebody who is, what's the word, hypergamous, like somebody who's with multiple people. In my history, for the last 30 something years, I've been with like 3 women, my first wife, a girlfriend, and my second wife. So, and then actually, well, 4 if you count the most recent one, but I feel like I'm not getting any younger, and there are a lot of people in our age group who have similar stories in terms of marriage failures and difficulties with making things work long term. And so I felt like maybe people would be understanding of my circumstances and would be willing to tolerate having to wait before we could before I'm divorced. I mean, it doesn't really change anything in terms of starting a relationship, building a relationship, getting to know each other, etc. But it does from the perspective of, there's still things I'm dealing with in terms of the final divorce. So I think it's a good question, though, because a lot of people would say, I don't want to date anybody who's separated, right? There's too much drama. It's too difficult. And that's sort of what that post was about, because even at my stage, even after all this time, there still is some stuff that I'm dealing with. And anybody who's had children with someone and been married to someone for a long time knows you're always going to have that relationship in your life. But I've learned there is a time when that relationship is still maybe too raw for other people to want to have in their life. So that's sort of how I got here, Patricia. If that's a long-winded answer to your question, I'm sorry.
So, are you saying then that your goal is to be in a long-term, like?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, not just with anyone. I mean, I'd like to meet the right person. I tried twice, and I guess the first one was my right person for 20 years, the second one for 12 years. So, hopefully the next one will be for a very long time, because that means I succeeded in a marriage and I lived a long time. So, because my age, so, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm not going to be a player. I'm not one of those guys that goes with, much younger women, although my soon to be ex is 19 years younger than me. So there's a whole bunch of talking there.
Much.
So you met
there's
you met on Bumble. What was it about her in particular that drew you to her? Like, was there something in her profile that drew you to her?
That's another really good question, because I never thought about it from the perspective of what drew me to her. On those apps, from the male perspective, especially that one, because the woman has to initiate the communication. It's probably true throughout our lives, right? The women are the ones who ultimately decide, and the men are will then meet women who want to meet us. It's hard. It doesn't, in my experience, it hasn't happened the other way around. And so she was one of the people that matched me. I matched her, and then she communicated with me. And her first question to me was, why do you like time travel novels? Because I happen to like to read time travel novels. It's one of my little weird interests that I have. And that got us talking about quantum physics. She's a teacher, and she's educated in these areas. And the next thing you know, we just realized we had a lot in common. I took my kids on a cruise, communicated with her throughout the cruise. We switched to text and kind of got each other's, personalities, if you will, and realized that we might have some things in common. When I got back from the cruise, um, I called her up and said, "Hey, let's," or texted her and said, "Why don't we get coffee?" And we did. And I should give an update to my post, by the way. So, I don't know if that's me. That's beeping. I apologize if it is. Um, oh, yeah. I'm an attorney, and this has happened to me in court before. So, I'm always like, "Is it me? Wait, wait." Um, but what happened is I met her. And we really just started, we immediately felt a connection. The update to my post is that she ended up contacting me, and we started dating again. We yeah, we
Congratulations.
did. Yes, we did. And I was really happy about that because I really do like her. And then something happened, and she sort of retreated again because I had another one of these raw interactions. So the ebb and the flow continues. Okay, the yin and the yang, or whatever you want to call it, yin and yang. So we're still very much communicating and talking and trying to spend time together, but the same issue has reared its ugly head, which is that I still have some things that she's witnessing in terms of just drama. If I'll just call it that. So that's the update. But to get back to your question, we went had coffee. The coffee date was 4 hours. That neither one of us realized it was literally 4 hours in a Starbucks. I think the people there might have started, look at us as if, are we homeless? Like we have no place else to go. The shift changed during the time we were sitting there. I mean, it was a long time, but that to me was a successful first date. We just really got along, as I thought we would. I mean, we just seemed to share our personalities. But what drew me to her profile, I can't tell you that it was her writing. I mean, she's cute, and I she's 55, but she's really cute. She just is. And oh my gosh, I'm sorry, guys. This is the danger of doing this from a cell phone. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, now it's better
Yeah.
again. Yes.
Okay, I apologize. I'm driving home from work. It was a late night. So, but I thought her photos were nice. They featured her personality. She's a runner. She's into the outdoors. She's in shape, and that's more stuff we had in common. And anyway, when I swiped right, as they say, I was hopeful, but realistic, because a lot of the women that I swipe right on, I never see again, right? So,
Yep.
thankfully, this one so far, knock on wood, worked out.
It sounds like you guys really had a lot in common, like you said, and that's kind of how this should work,
Yes.
You did a good job of actually reading the profile.
Yeah.
you know, so good. That's how it's supposed to work.
Mhm.
So good for you for that. Um, let's see, what's the next one? How did you navigate dating while maintaining the relationship with your ex?
Well, that's what I'm failing on, because
Mhm.
I think if you were to ask my soon-to-be ex, she would like to reconcile, and because of things that happened between us, I don't think that's going to be possible. But right now, the relationship, I'm having to draw a very clear boundary in terms of what I share with her, and how frequently we communicate about anything other than our the house, the kids, just the stuff we need to deal with. I went through this in the first marriage, and I'm sure you guys have gone through this in yours. But there's a time when it's just heartbreaking to get divorced.
Mm.
Um, and everybody's got really strong emotions, and you're on the fence. Gosh, should I do this? It's not really bad. It's just the stuff that's come up. And if I go with somebody else in 5 years, there's going to be stuff. It's just going to be other stuff. And should I just stay with this one? And I had already gone through all that. And I don't think my ex has yet. I think she still believes even now that, because we still have another like 8 months to wait before we can get divorced in our state. Um, I think she's still hoping that we can reconcile. And so, I've like, if she calls when I'm out with the current woman I'm seeing, I will just not answer. And I'll send a quick text, hey, I'm tied up. But when it's 9 o'clock at night, there isn't really any other place I can be except for with on a date, right? I mean, how else am I going to be, unavailable? And so that, and then causes a flurry of who are you with? What are you doing? And it's that sort of stuff that's going on right now. And so what I've tried to do is be very kind and very understanding and very, very compassionate. But at the same time, I've tried to be very firm about the boundary. And I don't know any other way to say it, but that is the hardest thing when you've been with somebody in the most intimate ways possible and slept next to each other for 12 years. To have to draw a boundary, it's tough. It really is, because you don't want to have that boundary, but you realize that if you don't have the boundary, you can't get closure from the relationship. And what I'm realizing is other potential partners are going to be spooked. They're going to be freaked out that wait, what's going on? Why are you talking to this woman? And so that's what I'm still learning this. Okay. And in my life in general, and certainly in this area, the failures are much more interesting to talk about than the successes. And there have been a lot more failures in terms of my ability to keep this boundary. But I'm taking it one day at a time, and hopefully the woman that I'm seeing, who I told her about this podcast, and she said, you can't say where we live, you can't say what my name is, she's like, so I can't say anything more than the woman I'm seeing. That's the language we agreed on. Yeah, but I think that she went through this before. She's been divorced for a while and went through all this, and so she is understanding. But that doesn't mean that she's going to put up with it forever. I mean, that's the bottom line.
And that's what I was going to ask about. Like, what do you do to make it so that she's going to be okay with it? Like, how do you make the relationship with your ex so that your current girlfriend is okay with it?
That she feels comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's another great question. The things that you would think of immediately would be things like just sharing all the text messages, letting her have my phone, et cetera. But those are private interactions that I'm having with my ex, and I don't feel like it's appropriate to share those with anyone. It's disrespectful to her. And even though the woman I'm currently seeing would 100% be reassured by seeing those messages, I don't feel right doing that. So I've struggled with how to reassure outside of, just being completely transparent, which is typically how you gain somebody's trust, and so what I've done is just try to, we've had a lot of conversations, and, we had one last night. We were supposed to spend the night together, and something happened, and I got a bunch of calls, and we ended up both agreeing that we needed to not spend the night together, because the mood was sort of ruined, and it was going to be an all-night drama. So, I mean, talking to you guys about it makes me realize how the one that I'm seeing now, she's been pretty understanding, because I'm not sure if the tables were turned that I would be able to be as understanding. Yeah,
Well, especially people start feeling feelings. That's when things get complicated.
Yes, and we're right at that stage. We're coming up on 3 months since we met, and so I certainly have developed strong feelings, and I think she has too. Um, it's just a matter, we haven't shared them necessarily with each other, but we both have agreed that we are getting closer. Um, it's just tough, it's this navigating these waters is treacherous at times. That's the best way I can say it. And I'm so grateful to have met someone, because I was very worried at my age that I wasn't going to be desirable to anyone. I think I put that in the post. And that I felt I got over that pretty quickly. But then I realized that finding another person maybe it was going to be harder, and I was very fortunate, to meet her. And I do genuinely hope that it works out.
Did she express to you anything that she would like for you to do differently with that situation to make her so that she could feel better?
That's I'd have to let me think for a second. I mean, I think that she has said to me that my boundaries aren't strong enough. For example, in the post, I talked about how I was trying to reassure my ex about herself and about her ability to get through this time, and how wonderful she is, and how just strong and impressive and amazing she is as a woman. And I was doing that because she's taking care of my kids, and I mean, I do care for her, but it's really that I want to make sure she's all in and present for the kids, and not having some crises of confidence, which she is having. And when I did that in front of the woman I'm seeing now, and she she reacted strongly to that. She felt like that was too private and too intimate, and that I should be saying, I can't be that person for you. You need to find someone else find a therapist or a friend to help you with that. And I've done that since then. I mean, I think that was good advice. I myself have trouble with that boundary.
Okay, so good. Good. Because I'm just hearing what you were saying. I think I would struggle with that situation too. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in that same situation with the person I'm with now, but he was very, very good about. Well, they did not break up amicably. Let's put it that way.
They had
so it wasn't like.
There were no
it was
calls.
a totally different situation, I guess we can say.
Yeah.
So that made me feel better about that.
Yeah.
But I don't really know how I would have felt about it. Well, either way, even with that, I couldn't take it.
Yeah, even if it was nothing going on, and then to hear.
So I can appreciate. Yeah, I can appreciate her having issues with it.
Oh,
yes,
definitely.
Yes.
And it was very good, and you did what sounds like a good job of reassuring her.
Mm-hmm.
At least made effort to do that and made that shift. So
and if it's not too weird of a question, how old are your kids?
I actually have kids that are in school age kids. When I got married again, I was in my 40s, and my ex was in her 20s, and we had more kids. So she was in her 20s when I met her, and so I think I was 47 and she was 27, and so we ended up getting pregnant, and then we got together. I mean, got married, and then we ended up having another baby. So I have two children who are of school age, so it's going to be a while before they're in college. Well, pretty young. I mean, not super young. I don't want to give their exact ages because of the doxing that goes on, but they're young enough to where they'll be in my life for several years, and as children. And I think that the woman I'm seeing now is okay with that part of it. She's a teacher. She's actually an award-winning teacher. She teaches fourth graders. She's really, really good with kids. She has her own children who are adults now, and I don't think that part of it is an issue really for us at all. I think the issue is kind of, to put just say it in one sentence. It is very difficult for anyone to see someone that they are close to and intimate with and have strong feelings for sharing those same sorts of things with somebody else.
Yeah.
I just think that's hard, and I totally understand it. And when the woman I'm seeing now, has tried to end it with me, I've been 100% on board, and I've said I totally understand it, and I'm sorry that I'm putting you in this situation, and if I'll contact you when things are better, and then she contacted me, which was nice. But the point is that this is one of those situations where there's really nobody, there's no bad guy, there's no wrong. I understand my ex and how she feels. I know how I feel. I know how the woman I'm seeing now feels, and it's just a matter of the passage of time and everybody doing the right thing. And hopefully it will work out. I mean, I would understand if it was too much for her, and I'm doing my best to make it so it's not too much for her. And hopefully I'm doing enough. But as I said, just last night we had another interaction where we both agreed we needed to take some time apart because even if it was just a night, so that we could process the event that had occurred. And I know these are common things that we all deal with in the dating world. I did not expect to be dealing with this kind of stuff at my stage of life. I had this idea when I was younger that people that were my age now had it all figured out, and what I'm realizing is that's not accurate. So still bumping into walls and tripping over my own legs, trying to get through this.
What advice would you give to other men in their 50s who are nervous about dating again after a long marriage?
I would say unequivocally, get yourself together, right? Make sure that you've got your finances in order. You've nailed down all the moving parts of your breakup. But most importantly, don't feel like you're not going to be desirable just because you're older. I mean, I have this expression that I tell my kids and anybody who listens, always have hope in your heart. There's a reason why despair is a sin, right? Because it's giving up. And I feel like a lot of people in our age group, I read this all the time on Reddit because I read that, obviously I have post in it, but I read that forum every day. And a lot of people have both men and women have sort of given up. And I want to tell them, hey, just stop. You have to have hope. You always, as long as we're alive on this planet, there's always the chance that things will get better. They will get better if you just put your time and energy in, make yourself your best self. But my primary motivation or my primary advice would be, don't give up. Put yourself out there. Try. Because you know what? You're going to find someone. There's people out there just like you who are feeling just as despairing and just as hopeless. And all they're waiting for is to meet you. So, but they're not going to meet you. If you don't put your line in the water, you're not going to catch any fish.
Yep.
And if you like fish and you want to catch a fish, then maybe you should get out there and get yourself one. And that's my advice, because I had all those feelings and I was very concerned and nervous when I went on Bumble. And, it is, I've learned now since then, men don't get as much attention as women. It's the nature of that domain, but it doesn't mean you don't get attention. I still had dozens of likes and a lot of people to meet and get to know. And of course, during the messaging process, you weed out a lot of people or they weed you out, and that's part of the deal. But you can't, it's the other, that reminds me, the other advice I would have is you have to look at it as a numbers game. You can't take the rejection personally, especially when you haven't even met the person. But even after you've met the person, you're going to go through some no's before you get to the next yes.
Yeah.
That's the nature of this. And you can't let it discourage you. If you're in sales, right, and we're not all suited to be salesmen, but I'm kind of a salesman as an attorney, you're going to get rejected. You're going to have people not like you. You're going to have people react negatively to you. They're going to tell you negative things about yourself. And you know what you have to do? You have to say, okay, well, that's another no, because I'm glad I got through that one, because that gets me one closer to the next yes. And I think that's so. that would be my other advice is just, don't take, give yourself a little bit of self-esteem and
Yeah.
recognize that rejection is part of the process.
Have you had any horrible first date experiences since you started dating again?
Fortunately, no. The experiences that I've had uh, have all ended the same way, including maybe this one. The women that I met, we got along. We liked each other. We were attracted to each other. We made each other laugh. We had a lot in common. I mean, everything was good except that they didn't want to deal with someone who hadn't been fully divorced yet because of the drama. And the drama manifested in one way or another in every one of those situations. There were three women that I met before I met the current woman over, I would say, since February. So however long that's been, 8 months. And these were only one or two or three dates. I think one of them was maybe 5 dates, the first one. But all of them ended the same way. The person just didn't want to deal with my situation. Fortunately, I never, so far, I haven't had the experience of someone flaking on me or not showing up, or showing up and not looking like their pictures, or being obnoxious or getting drunk, or anything like that. That hasn't happened yet. Knock on wood. I no, not so far. I try to. I don't know. It's probably just the luck of the draw. Um, I haven't so far been completely ghosted, but I've been told, by three women, your situation is too, excuse the expression, effed up for me to be involved in, and I'm not going to be involved in it, which is by itself hard to hear. So, and really, if you count the current woman that I'm seeing, um, it would be four, because she actually had that reaction as well. And, you know, fortunately, she's still willing to endure it, at least for now. But as I've told, all the people that I've met, because I've been very transparent about this, even in my profile, I've said that I'm not fully divorced yet. Um, but even when you're fully transparent, and even when people give it a chance, and even when you start to get close, and you've had several dates, and you've met other people, and all this, other people in your lives, people, once they get to a certain point where they start to really feel things, I think that they get freaked out when they see the rawness of this interaction, and so my way of dealing with that has been the same in all cases: be as transparent as I can and as reassuring, and just in my own life keep things moving towards the ultimate divorce, because it's easy to not do that. So anyway, that's where I've been so far, and I've read the stories, and I feel bad for the people who have endured those stories. Um, but so far, knock on wood, I haven't seen that in my own experience.
Do you think that, and being realistic, that after your divorce is final, that the situation with your ex, the calls and the boundary issues, are those gonna continue?
I think when she meets somebody else, that stuff will fade away. Um, to give you guys a little background, the reason that we are splitting up is because of infidelity on her part, and the infidelity was in the context of circumstances that were not necessarily, it wasn't black and white. Okay, there were shades of gray in the infidelity, but I think that if the person that she was unfaithful with would have wanted to be with her, she would have wanted to be with him. And that would have made this whole circumstance proceed a lot differently than it has when he decided that he didn't want to deal with me, the big bad wolf, right? Because I made sure that he knew that he was going to have to deal with me. She then felt, adrift and alone and scared, and just like a rubber band snapped right back to me. And in the beginning, I kind of went with it, but then after a few weeks, I just said, I can't do this. There's no trust here anymore, and you're only with me because I scared away him. And so, yeah, that's how it worked out ultimately. But based on that experience and how she was acting when this was going on, my belief is that as soon as she meets someone else, it will greatly abate. Let's put it that way.
Do you think that you're gonna end up wanting to get married again?
I'm certainly open to it. I mean, I don't have a specific, um, like goal of getting married.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to find someone that I can live out my days with. I mean, I'm like anybody else. I have bad days at work, and I sometimes and I'm a trial lawyer, so sometimes the whole world hates you, right? The judge and your client and the opposing attorney and all the jurors, and you just want to go crawl in a hole. And it's really nice to have someone that you can go home to, and that's your place, right? That's where you're safe. And maybe that person doesn't hate you the way all those other people did. I mean, although I have, even in relationships, there have been times when I've gone home and I've even been hated at home. So, I don't know if my plan is so great, but um, that's the idea, is to just have somebody to be with. I mean, I don't want to live alone. I don't want to be alone. I like having somebody in my life. I'm a pretty social person, but I don't have 100 friends. I like having a woman in my life to be close to, and that's what I would like. And if she wants to get married and we can work out all the financial issues and the issues with our families and all that stuff, absolutely, I'd be delighted to be married again. But I wouldn't say that's the goal. The goal is the relationship and the person. And then whatever happens from that, I'd be open to.
Well, I was going to ask before because I keep going back.
Okay.
But no, just something that you said before when you were talking about your ex and her relationship and how your marriage ended. When you referenced the guy she was seeing, you said that he would have to deal with you, the big bad wolf, and he ran away. Like, what was that? Like, what
Well,
did
I'll
you
give you,
do?
I'll give you the short version. Okay, so I'm 50. I was 57 at the time, or 58. He was 27. She was like 39, and I had met this guy, and I'm not a small guy, right? First of all, but more to the point, you know, I don't think he realized. I don't think that. Well, I'll just say what I did. Okay, I'll just say what I did. So once I found out, I contacted him. I called him. Um, he didn't answer the phone. I left him a voicemail. He didn't call me back. So I texted him and I said, what I said, which was basically, I didn't consent to this. You're cheating you're committing adultery. Um, this was not okay with me. What the fuck? Excuse me for saying that. If you have to edit that out, I'll just, what the, what? Why did you do this? And, his response was that, he thought that my wife and I were in a situation where it was okay for him to be with her. He was very apologetic and, frightened, I think, because I told him, preserve all those text messages and all those call records, and you're going to be a witness in a litigation, and blah blah blah. And he just freaked out and didn't want any part of it. So he basically ghosted her, um, and that really freaked her out because it made her feel like she was rejected and she wasn't desirable, and she wasn't attractive as a woman, and she she had that reaction. And I explained to her that that's not what happened. He doesn't want to deal with me, and he doesn't want to be in this situation. He's just a young guy. He's just starting his life. Um, but she took it very, very personally and tried over the ensuing months to reach him and contact him, and had people contact him. And I mean, she really went out of her way to try to get a positive reaction from him, that he in fact did find her attractive and did want to be with her, and only didn't because of me. So it was, for her, it was much more than just cheating. It was all about her self-esteem and her desirability as a woman. She was aging and freaking out, and here she is with this much older man, And anyway, that's what I did. I just very directly said, you can't do this anymore, and if you do, you're going to have trouble with me. And in the meantime, legalities, right? And I just don't think he wanted to deal with that, and he went away. So that's where it's been so far. I don't know because I haven't asked what is going on with her right now, but my assumption is that she hasn't met someone because she's still actively trying to engage with me.
Yeah, that's
I know. It's listen. It's one of those. Patricia, that's a great way to say it because I don't know where to start either. I don't know how I got in this freaking situation. I don't know how this all came into my life. Like, how did I let it happen? But it did. I wasn't the best husband to my ex. I worked a lot. As a trial attorney, you're in an adversarial fighting posture all day long, every day. That's your job. I mean, I'm the baseball bat that the one party uses to bash the other party with after they can't resolve their differences, right? So that's my job, is to be the baseball bat. So when I come home, to turn that off is very difficult. And so in addition to working long hours and not always being around and then being in a bad mood a lot of times when I was home, I was also probably verbally not abusive, but abrasive with her one too many times. I don't know. It's really hard to be around an attorney who's actively trying cases. Unless you're, a sociopath and you just don't care, you know. But for me, I take it home with me, and it's really hard to turn it off. And so the point is, I'm not excusing what she did, but I am also sort of giving context. It's not like I'm the great, person who did nothing wrong and she was awful. It was definitely both of us that led us to that point. And I have full responsibility for my part in that. And, now I know what it feels like to have somebody cheat on me because I didn't know that before. And you know what? It sucks. So I can promise I would never do that to someone else. Now seeing how that feels, it's a horrible feeling.
sure. And I'm just interested to know on your dating apps, what is your date ranges? I mean, your date ranges, your age ranges.
Well, that's it's funny that you asked that because I was all over the place. For a while I did not have one. And I was getting contacted by people who were way older than I wanted to be with and way, way younger than I wanted to be with. And so I started experimenting with them. And I started on the apps when I was 58. So that would have been, wait a second. No, I'm sorry. I was 59. I was the same year. It's the same year I am now. I'm confused. It's late, guys. I'm sorry. I'm tired. So yeah. So I was 59. The first thing I did was put myself as 52. Okay, because I felt like if I didn't do that, I was going to get filtered out on the other side, and I look a little younger than I am. So I put myself at an age that was less than what I am, and then I like built in. I think I went down to 40 or 41, and I went up to 60. And that is when I met the woman that I'm seeing now. It was in that range. Her age range was 51 to 59. She was 54 at the time. She's 55 now. Yeah,
So,
and you know what? I will say this. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, so your date, what are you saying date? Your age range in the beginning was, you said you did not have one, so it was anybody, and then you changed it to the 40 to, what did you say, 60?
Yeah, yeah, and then I even mess around with it from there because what I realized was a lot of the people that I was matching with um, were they were people that wouldn't want to be with somebody who was. And you know what I just realized? I think that my dates are off because I was on Bumble twice. All this crap with my ex, I told you guys it's been a long separation. It actually
Mm-hmm.
started in 2022. So I was on Bumble for a period of time in 2023. And at that time is when I had the age range lower. And I did meet some women
Lower
at
to what?
that time. Well, no, those in the 40s. And I did meet some women at that time who were in their early 40s. I actually had a date with one. We went out twice, um, and I had plans to meet another one. Uh, so, so yeah. And what I learned was, because it's funny, I haven't thought about this in a while. I learned that that was too young for me. You know, I was already with somebody who was just a little bit younger than that, and I just wasn't interested in that. I don't understand these guys that go for women that are way, way younger than them. Although I was one of those guys at a time, you know, not because she was young. I mean,
So wait a minute though.
yeah.
Wait a minute though. So what was it that made you start thinking that this is not right for me, dating somebody that much younger?
Yeah.
Well, and I recognize the irony. We can just not comment on that for now. But but and there's a whole story there too, which I'm happy to share. But for this purpose, what I realized was after having met and communicating with a couple of those women that some of them were still talking about having kids, you know, and I had been there and done that, you know. That my first wife was 4 years older than me, and we were together for a long time. My second wife, my now ex, she was 19 to 20 years younger than me, depending upon the year or the time of the year. And I kind of just want to be with somebody my own age, you know, I mean, close to my own age. And so that's how I got there. And so when I met the current one, um, I had my age range, I think, from like 45 or 48 to 60. I always had the upper range at 60. And then now that I'm going to be 60, and if I have to do this again, I'm going to make the range higher, you know, because I'm not going to, you know, rule out people who are older than me. But ideally, it would be somebody in that right around my age, you know, within a few years, 5 years of my age, let's say. I think that's where you really can get each other, and you have the same cultural references, and you have the same life milestones, and you're in hopefully the same sort of financial position. And you know, like some of the younger women that I met, they were still starting their careers or right in the middle of their careers, so they were working like crazy hours. And I didn't, you know, I've already done that. I did that for decades. You know, I still work and I work hard. I mean, it's late tonight and I'm still, you know, just coming home from work, but I don't do this every day anymore. And I'm not in there at 7:30 in the morning. You know, I mean, I'm not in that point in my life, and I don't want to be with somebody who is at that point in her life, because it's going to be a lot of time that we're going to miss with each other, and I'd rather spend that time together.
Watched our videos on what we call OMS. Have you watched
I've watched the videos, but I don't think I ever figured out what the acronym was. What is ONS?
It's old man syndrome.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you know what? Actually, now that you mention it, I did see one of those videos, and I agree with a lot of the points that you guys have made in those videos. One of the great things about your show is that you guys get it. You know, you talk about the things that are out there, and let's face it, there is that's a real thing. I mean, a lot of the guys I was talking about earlier that are despairing, they just they let themselves go, and you know, they don't want to do anything. And yeah, I have seen some of those now that you mentioned it. I didn't know what that acronym meant though. That's actually pretty funny. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So to give you the, I can answer the pending question that hasn't even been asked yet. So the reason that I ended up with somebody so much younger than me the last time was because I did look a lot younger than my age, and you know, we just met in the wild, and I wasn't looking for somebody younger. Um, you know, I wasn't even, I tried a match.com when that was what it was back then. I didn't like it, you know, so we just met and we got along, you know, and then we got pregnant. And so, you know, 12 years later, now I have two kids. So, with her. So yeah, that's how it happened. But it wasn't because I was looking for someone. And I think part of the problem in our marriage is that, you know, I did age. I mean, when, you know, for men, at least in men in my family, when you get to your late 50s, boy, you really start to go downhill in the looks department, you know. It's just a genetic thing. And so you get a little punch, you know, and you get, you know, your skin's a little mottled and your hair is kind of gray, and, you know, it takes a lot more for me to clean up, you know, than it used to. And I think, what's that?
We change.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think that's 100% true. And, you know, I don't have any problem with it, but my then 37-year-old wife did. I think she was horrified to see, you know.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, you're right. That's on me for ending up with somebody that age and not really seeing that this was coming myself. I mean, the fact is, it scared her to think that she was aging, and she was approaching 40. As time went on, she's now 40. And I think it just freaked her out. I think she just went nutso for a while, about that, which is what they call that a midlife crisis. I mean, she had hers a little early because she was with an older dude. And it's not like I'm decrepit, but you know what? I'm not running in a marathon anytime soon, and I'm just an older dude now. That's the way it is. Like you said, Patricia, you get older. I mean, it's the beauty of life, right? We're still alive, because the alternative to getting older is not something I want. So,
So,
so yeah, yeah, we're here, and so, uh, but it is something that's sad. I mean, my own parents, I'll tell you, they're 80 and 81, and they're really fading, and they were lions in their day. Okay, they were PhDs, brilliant, on top of their game, respected, and now they're just old people, and it's really hard to see that. And I think that my ex had a version of that perception with me. Yep. Which is a reason, by the way, gentlemen who are listening to this podcast, I would recommend that somebody who's been there and done that you not do it. Okay, stick with people your own age, because you're going to end up getting a slap in the face. Or if you have great genetics, it'll come later, but it's coming for all of us.
If you anything differently, are we going back to your recent relationship? What would it be, if anything?
I think I might have set boundaries with my ex before I started dating, and established those boundaries, and developed mechanisms for dealing with those boundaries way before I started dating. Because doing it the way I did it, which was to sort of set them as I went along, like I was saying earlier, if you're not answering the phone at 9:30 at night, and you have kids with the person who's calling you, usually it's because you're on a date, right? I mean, there isn't much else you'd be doing at that time of night where you wouldn't answer the phone. And I just, that kind of thing, I just did not think through, Patricia, at all. I just didn't. I wish I had, in retrospect, established those boundaries much earlier. It wouldn't have resulted in any different outcome in any way, except that I would have made the women that I've seen less uncomfortable, and maybe one of those early relationships would have stuck. I don't know. But that's probably the primary thing. And I guess the other thing I might have done differently, um, I haven't been, I didn't figure out what I was going to do with my kids right away. I kind of did that by ear also, and I think that I think that if I had handled that differently and been more present as a father throughout all this, my ex might have seen that, I could have given her a blueprint for how she could do it, right? She has the kids a certain amount of time, and I do, and then we're free the other time, and we don't bother each other or talk to each other on when the other one's free. And, I didn't do it that way because of my job and because of some other reasons. I'm basically, working harder than I've worked in a few years, and not as hard as I did when I was 40, but harder. And so I haven't spent as much time with my kids as I'd like to, just by virtue of what's happening in my career. But maybe I would have said no to some of those legal engagements and been able to have been more on a schedule with my ex, because again, it would have managed her expectations and emotions and feelings in a way that would make my present time much more easy to deal with.
But yeah, because just from hearing you just provide, all the situations and the things that have happened, it seems as though that is the big. I mean, I can't even get on the still married because the boundary crossing is overshadowing that. And I think that it's a possibility that that will continue even after the marriage is legally ended.